What's up, everybody? Today I'm going to be talking about this book that I just read called Outwitting the Devil, which is nothing like I thought it was going to be about. I was assuming, based on kind of the cover, that it was going to be about money and how to save money and how to be smart with money, but it's really nothing like that at all. And it's really just a lot of timeless wisdom, and upon reading it, I feel like it's crucial wisdom for anybody that wants to be successful in their life endeavors. It was interesting because most of this book is in an interview format where the author is interviewing the devil, and I had no idea about this upon reading it. It was just kind of serendipitous on how it fell into my hands. But anyway, I was on a plane at night and there was a lot of turbulence, and I was the only person on the plane that had their light on to read. And I had this book with me and I intended on reading it, and I had this really weird fear and thoughts come up of like, I'm gonna die in this plane, like the plane's gonna crash and I'm gonna die. And I've been on like 200 plane rides, and every time something like that has come up, I usually just kind of like brush it, but this time it felt pretty like strong. It was strange, and so I kind of sat with that energy for a while. And then I opened the book, and like the next page was like the interview with the devil begins. So definitely had like an interesting experience reading this book. And so I wanted to start off by reading a section in this book that talks about who the devil says he is in here, and also there's just this, you know, he gives this disclaimer before he goes into the interview, which is to not be so worried about whether or not you believe that that's real or not, but to actually take it for what it is, and if it's useful to you, if it's something that you can apply to your life, then look at it that way. So he says, I am the explosion and lightning. I am the pain and disease and physical suffering. I am the unseen general in warfare. I am the unknown commissioner of poverty and famine. I am the executioner extraordinaire at death. I am the inspirer of lust after the flesh. I am the creator of jealousy and envy and greed. I am the instigator of fear. I am the genius who converts the achievements of men of science into instruments of death. I am the destroyer of harmony in all manner of human relationships. I am the antithesis of justice. I am the driving force in all immorality. I am the stalemate of all good. I am anxiety, suspense, superstition, and insanity. I am the destroyer of hope and faith. I am the inspirer of destructive gossip and scandal. I am the discourager of free and independent thought. In brief, I am the creator of all forms of human misery, the instigator of discouragement and disappointment. And then after he says all that, he says, and you do not call that cold and cruel. And he says, I call that definite and dependable. Which really kind of struck a chord with me when I read that part. The purpose of this video is to, as concisely as possible, take apart what I thought were the biggest insights and the best wisdom that I received in this book, and relay it in a way where you can watch this video in about 15 minutes and gain as much of that treasure as possible without actually having to read it. So I ended up writing pages and pages of notes of different things that I underlined in this book, and I was thinking of the best way to organize it so that it sort of has a flow to it. And I feel like the best way to do that is to introduce what he refers to as drifters and non-drifters. So essentially, drifters are people who tend to have no sort of definite purpose in their life, are kind of defeated by different forms of fear and adversity and stuff like that, whereas non-drifters on the other side are more positive thinkers, more focusing on faith and courage, and do have sort of a definite purpose. And so I'd like to read a part of the book that talks about the difference between drifters and non-drifters, so that there's kind of a clear image of that, and then kind of go from there. Starting with drifters, it says, the first thing you will notice about a drifter is his total lack of major purpose in life. He will be conspicuous by his lack of self-confidence. He will never accomplish anything requiring thought and effort. He will have little or no imagination. He will lack enthusiasm and initiative to begin anything he is not forced to undertake, and he will plainly express his weakness by taking the line of least resistance whenever he can do so. He will be ill-tempered and lacking in control over his emotions. His personality will be without magnetism, and it will not distract other people. He will have opinions on everything, but accurate knowledge of nothing. He may be jack of all trades, but good at none. He will neglect to cooperate with those around him, even those on whom he must depend for food and shelter. He will make the same mistake over and over again, never profiting by failure. He will be narrow-minded and intolerant on all subjects, ready to crucify those who may disagree with him. He will expect everything of others, but be willing to give little or nothing in return. He may begin many things, but he will complete nothing. He will be loud in his condemnation of his government, but he will never tell you definitely how it can be improved. He will eat too much and exercise too little. He will criticize others who are succeeding in their chosen calling. He will tell a lie rather than admit his ignorance on any subject. If he works for others, he will criticize them to their backs and flatter them to their faces. That gives a pretty good description of what a drifter is, I feel like. And so, going on to a non-drifter. It says, the first sign of a non-drifter is this: he is always engaged in doing something definite through some well-organized plan which is definite. He has a major goal in life toward which he is always working, and many minor goals, all of which lead towards his central scheme. The tone of his voice, the quickness of his step, the sparkle in his eyes, the quickness of decisions he makes clearly mark him as a person who knows exactly what he wants and is determined to get it, no matter how long it may take or what price he must pay. If you ask him questions, he gives you direct answers and never falls back on evasions or resorts to subterfuge. He will be found up front, whether he is playing a game or fighting a war. If he does not know the answer, he will say so frankly. He has a good memory and never offers an alibi for his shortcomings. He never blames others for his mistakes, no matter if they deserve the blame. He is an inspiration to all who come in contact with his mind. The major distinguishing feature of the non-drifter is this: he has a mind of his own and uses it for all purposes. And it talks about how the main difference between the two is simply the prerogative right of each to use his own mind and think for himself. So I think that gives a pretty clear picture of what he's referring to between drifters and non-drifters. And the next thing that I think is important to talk about is what it says throughout the book are the biggest causes and reasons for people to become drifters, which it says there are 6 fears that are the most effective at causing people to drift, which are the fear of poverty, the fear of criticism, the fear of ill health, the fear of loss of love, the fear of old age, and the fear of death. And it says that all of these fears create a filler in the unused portion of your mind through which the devil, or the negative energy of the universe, or whatever you want to use, occupies and causes you to, what he says, drift, which essentially is all of those things. You're drifting into the negative, discouragement and despair, and being overwhelmed by your adversities and kind of giving up on your life and not pursuing anything that you want, not pursuing your dreams, not pursuing what you want, and just being overcome by that. And that essentially was what I feel like he means by drifting, is that. There's something else that he talks about in the book too, on top of the 6 fears, which are what he calls 9 doors of thought, which people think are their own thoughts, but are actually not, are actually those portions that he is controlling. And so those 9 doors are, the first one is fear, the second one is superstition, which the best definition for superstition that I can think of is like belief in ignorant misunderstanding. The third door is envy, the fourth door is greed, the fifth door is laziness, the sixth door is lust, the seventh door is revenge, the 8th door is anger, and the 9th door is vanity. And I thought it was cool to have all of those kind of described in that sort of way, so that when those feelings or vibrations arise, you can kind of recognize them for what they are, and allow yourself to kind of clear that and be with that, and instead focus on something that you do want, and put faith and courage and positive things into that space. And then lastly, what I thought was interesting was what he described as sin, which the original translation for the word sin in Greek is miss the mark. And that was pretty similar to what he said. He says, sin is anything one does or thinks which causes one to be unhappy. Human beings who are in sound physical and spiritual health should be at peace with themselves and always happy. Any form of mental or physical misery indicates the presence of sin. And then he goes on to talk about these, which he says, just some examples of common forms of sin. And he says, it is a sin to overeat because that leads to ill health and misery. It is a sin to overindulge in sex because that breaks down one's willpower and leads to the habit of drifting. It is a sin to permit one's mind to be dominated by negative thoughts of envy, greed, fear, hatred, intolerance, vanity, self-pity, or discouragement because these states of mind lead to the habit of drifting. It is a sin to cheat, lie, and steal because these habits destroy self-respect, subdue one's conscience, and lead to unhappiness. It is a sin to remain in ignorance because that leads to poverty and loss of self-reliance. It is a sin to accept from life anything one does not want because that indicates an unpardonable neglect to use the mind. The question then is, if those things cause your mind to be filled by this negative part of the energy of the world or the devil, then what's the opposite of that? Or how do you become a non-drifter? And the book says that you occupy that space with faith in your ability to make life provide you with whatever you demand of it. This is what he refers to in the book as accurate thought, things of faith, courage, hope, definiteness of purpose. These are all things that over time lend to your benefit. It talks about laws of nature in this book, and that time is the friend of those who follow positive thinking habits and the enemy of those who follow negative thinking habits. So regarding what the book talks about as accurate thought or positive thought, I wrote down a list of a bunch of things that were in there that I thought were the most clear and straightforward, useful. It says, sow seeds of hope and courage. Have faith in your ability to make life provide you with whatever you demand of it. Rendering the service first. It says that is a law of nature also, that it's required to give first, to give a service first, to give before you receive, and give whatever you deem equal to whatever it is that you're asking for of life. It says dwell upon what you wish to attract, have confidence in your being, think freely and independently, exercise your imagination, encourage others, be open-minded and patient and forgiving, recognize and do not feed gossip and scandal, give and then receive, create opportunity to fit your desires, finish what you start, nurture harmony in relationships, seek and carry out positive solutions with empathy and love, admit ignorance and learn humbly. Distinguishing between the two that I just mentioned, accurate thought and then all of the fears and the 9 doors, it said whatever you tend to dwell upon the most becomes a permanent thing. It becomes a habit. It becomes a thinking habit, or like a habit rhythm. And this book talks about laws of nature. One of those laws being that over time, whatever habit, thinking habit and action habit you're on, which go hand in hand, ends up determining your earthly destiny. It says that nature doesn't care about right or wrong, justice or injustice, but only forcing everything to express action according to its nature. And it describes your nature as, firstly, positive or negative thought habits, which turn into your deeds. It says that time is the friend of those who have positive thinking habits and the enemy of those who have negative thinking habits. It's kind of like this snowball effect, that if you have positive thinking habits and you continue to dwell upon things that give you courage and faith in your dreams in life, that over time that just accumulates more and more and more. It becomes your friend, it becomes your ally. But if you drift into the negative things, into being overcome by adversity and fear, then it's the opposite of that. You end up losing your life, you end up losing everything that you want in your dreams. It says all negative desires, greed, envy, jealousy, anger, are only frustrations of positive desires, and an unwillingness to harmoniously adapt to nature's laws. And it says that with every failure comes a seed of equivalent advantage. And it actually says that failure is only real when it's accepted by us in our mind as a permanent circumstance. So it says instead of failure, it says temporary defeat. So another way of looking at it is with every temporary defeat comes with it a seed of equivalent advantage. And I thought that was so cool. It gives you this perspective of every time you face adversity, there doesn't have to be this nagging sense of defeat every time adversity comes up. Instead, you can have a mindset of, okay, what equal good am I getting out of this situation? How is it helping me grow, etc. And that seems to be a really big point in this book, is having that mindset continually when you face adversity, is looking at what good am I getting out of this. It says that when you face failure, that it gives you an opportunity for a fresh start. It gives you an opportunity to evaluate your thinking habits and your habit rhythm, and evaluate in what ways that's not serving your aims and goals in your life, and an opportunity to set up a new habit rhythm, a new thinking habits. And lastly, what I thought was really important was what it talks about as far as environment and relationships. Like, it says that we have the right and the power to choose our environment. It says instead of becoming a victim of every negative influence, choosing our environment, and actually most of what our environment consists of and is made up of is the people that we associate with, our friends and family and that sort of thing. So in regards to relationships and environment, it says that if you want to be successful in your life endeavors, your life ventures, then it is so crucial to surround yourself with people that think in terms of success, think in terms of encouragement. It describes environment as mental, physical, and spiritual forces which affect and influence human beings. It also says that there's a law of nature that requires everything to eventually come into harmony with whatever the dominating force is. So meaning, if you're in an environment where there's a lot of negative thinking, a lot of discouragement, a lot of despair, a lot of gossip and vanity and greed, and that's the dominating force, eventually things are required to come into harmony with that, even if it is negative. I feel like this book describing the advantage that comes with every adversity, with every temporary defeat, as benefits of adversity. It says one of them is how adversity discourages vanity and egotism and selfishness, because it proves that we cannot accomplish great tasks without the friendly cooperation of others. It says that it forces us to test our mental, physical, and spiritual strength, and to evaluate our weaknesses and face them. It also says that it forces people to seek ways and means to definite ends by meditation and introspective thought. And it says it's a blessing when it causes us to depend less on material forces and more on spiritual forces. And with that being said, it also says that being around those negative environments destroys your self-determination, which makes a lot of sense, right? Like, if you're around people that constantly bring you down, discourage you, it just makes total sense. But it's funny to me how little people tend to think about that, or how little I've thought about that. The type of people that we associate with and the environments that we're in are crucial to our success, in the sense that what we consistently think becomes what we consistently do. That becomes our lifestyle, that becomes who we are. So to kind of wrap all of that stuff up, I felt like the main point was the difference between drifters and non-drifters, and how the environment that we choose to be in, the people that we associate with, and also recognizing when somebody has benefit to you in your life. You know, when you meet people that their minds naturally harmonize with yours. I think a lot of times we create some sort of reasons for the people that we associate with, because they are interested in the same hobbies, or, you know, and a lot of those things go hand in hand, or they happen to go to the same places that we go. But this book made me really realize the value of people that harmonize naturally with you, and not to need any other reason to associate with people besides that. And that on top of, do they nurture the type of thinking habits you want? Do they encourage you? And that sort of thing. I hope that was helpful. I hope you guys got something out of that. Reading the book goes into these subjects in so much more detail, and I highly recommend it. There'll be a link to the book if you want to check that out in the description. And I'm also going to have another video that is what the book talks about as 3 appetites that are crucial to master, as far as like self-mastery goes, to ensure that you stay on the path of non-drifting and accomplishing what your desires are. So anybody that donates $1 or more will get to see that video, so definitely check that out. That link will also be in the description. And that's gonna do it for this one. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe. Appreciate you guys. Peace.